After the death of their leader, the How was forced to lead a group with a collective IQ lower than that of a toaster and use his skills to help them survive in the dungeons of the quiche with monsters. Our story begins with Haru waking up in pitch darkness and remembering nothing about the past nor about how he got here. Suddenly the gate opens and he goes outside, where he sees a group of people just as confused as he is and looking into the night sky. They notice a group of guards standing at some distance who direct them into a small tavern run by a not-so-decent guy named Broad, who introduces himself and says that this world is called a makeup bar and greets them. One of the white-haired guys tells him to shut up and explain what's going on before going into "Oh God, I'm in the game mo," and starting to insult him with homophobic remarks. Bree immediately responds, taking out a dagger and putting it to the guy's throat, and says that he hates impudent men. Even after that, Ryongji stands his ground and defiantly grabs the dagger. Bree decides let him go, give them rookie badges and some money so they can defend themselves from monsters the next day. Haru will be united by players who were not chosen for any team. They choose him as their leader and decide to join different guilds. Haru tries to join the Thieves Guild and meets a girl named Barbara, who immediately takes him and the shaka of the hold under her wing. After 7 days of constant grueling training, Haru turns into a real thief. Fat Mop becomes a warrior. Rent is a dark knight. You are a hunter. Shy mage. And finally the man becomes a priest. After a couple of days, Haru and his group are chasing a goblin and Ren tries to attack him but is repulsed. The goblin attacks Ren, throwing him back with every blow, and Haru has to intervene. Even Haru is defeated and falls, and Ren orders him to kill the goblin. Haru says that he will show him his sword in his ass, but then he almost gets hit by an arrow, which is shot by Yum, who is essentially Stormtrooper, and the dad from their group tells them to stick together and use melee weapons. Hearing this, a fat guy named Mock tries to attack the goblin, but his huge sword gets stuck in a tree and dances like in Fortnite, and then attacks him before jumping back. Suddenly the goblin turns around, notices Shy local girl, and runs up to her faster than my father ran away from me and attacks her before she can defend herself with magic. Luckily for her, Big Daddy comes to the rescue and saves her from the goblin attack. She starts crying because of the scratch. She's a not very strong independent woman, but the man immediately heals her before telling everyone that it is a matter of life and death, which gives everyone a fighting spirit, and they prepare for battle. Ren can't believe that goblins are considered the weakest monsters in this world, while Haru realizes that now they are even weaker than the weakest monsters and they have to run away. The next morning, Haru wakes up. Nenny Light and Idon and his roommate Ren immediately start making fun of him because of his Chinese eyes. They begin to discuss politics, but they are soon interrupted by Meng, who opens the door and says that breakfast is ready. Hao realizes that today is his turn to cook breakfast, but Meng tells him not to worry because Hao seems very tired. After yesterday's fight, they go downstairs, where Fatty Ko cobble up both cheeks, and Yum watches him with admiration. All 6 of them sit in the yard to have breakfast and asks them if everything is okay, and then he says that they need to go into the forest again. He says that the 2 goblins were too much for them, so they need to find a lone goblin and defeat him. Ran seems not to be happy with this idea because he wants to get as much experience as possible, but still agrees. They go into the jungle, and towards sunset, Yum notices 4 goblins who are relaxing on the river bank and having fun. They think about attacking them, but decide not to do it. Although their wallets are completely empty because they will not be able to cope with 4 goblins considering how much they are weak, they return at night to try again. The next day, that night, Hera wakes up to go to the toilet but notices that the man is not at home, so she goes outside and sees him returning. The man says that he went to the tavern for a drink, but in fact, he wanted to know more about this world. Hera pours him tea and thanks for the fact that he works so hard for the benefit of the whole team, and then they look at the Scarlet Moon together. The next morning, they go into the forest, where Kara notices a lone goblin drinking water and informs a whole team about this. They immediately get ready and with weapons at the ready slowly walk to the stream. Kara hides in the bushes, takes out a dagger and prepares to give a signal. But then the big guy gets stupid and screams and rushes to the goblin, warning him. Hao runs after him, and the goblin runs away, but Yu shoots an arrow and stops him. Ran for some reason fights with the trees. Hao stumbles and falls to the shore, and the goblin immediately attacks him. Hao dodges and tries to counterattack, but misses and gets into a fight. Suddenly, he remembers his training and cuts the goblin's wrist, which makes him furious and attacks again. Kara continues to dodge and run away, and the man orders everyone to attack. Ren makes a wild swing, but misses and gets hit in the dirt, and the goblin tries to finish him off. The man saves him with his staff, and she uses a spell and releases a magic arrow, but misses. They all surrounded this pathetic creature while he could mercilessly attacks him, trying to hold him, but the goblin jumps back and gets hit in the back by the rent. The goblin is already on his last legs and starts screaming, which scares them a little, but the R&D comes to his senses and attacks again, facing the monster, and Haru and Yum jump on him, but the goblin pushes them away. Haru tries to attack again, and this time hits the goblin, but before Haru can take advantage of this, the goblin throws a dagger at Haru, who is wounded in the shoulder and screams in pain, and the goblin rushes at him and is about to kill him, but at the last moment, Haru then sticks the dagger in the goblin's neck, and Ren pushes him away and Mok deals a fatal blow to the head. Everyone is shocked by what happened, but Yum runs up to Haru and helps to pull out the dagger, and Men quickly heals him. R&D immediately begins to search the goblin's body and finds a silver coin on his neck, but the goblin knocks Ren down and runs away. But Ren catches up with him and strikes him and then finishes him off. The goblin is still alive, so Ren stabs him in the chest and Haru becomes dizzy when R&T mercilessly stabs the goblin in the chest to make sure that this time he is definitely dead. The goblin falls to the ground and begins to cry, and Haru realizes that his hands are shaking from everything he has experienced. After that, they return to the city where they sell everything they found and divide the proceeds before going their separate ways. Riva decides to go to the market, where he sees different people and even one sad wounded man who eats while the others are having fun in the evening. They meet on the bridge and look at the sunset together and then go home because tomorrow they need to work again to earn food for food the next morning. The fat man fills his belly again, and Haru returns from the store and gives him several eggs so that they have a yolk, and then there will be the rest ramen in the end. He calls Yon below the grass, which deserves a powerful blow from him. But it starts to rain and they have to hide in the forest under the tension, and Haru find an old fire and traces of goblins. Haru believes that there were at least 3 of them and decides not to go further for now. They return to the others and everyone decide that that's enough for today, because in such rain, it will not earn anything for 3 days. It will not earn anything because of the heavy rain, and they do so, or per that Haru can't even buy tanties for himself and washes and wears the same pair over and over again. The next day they go to a neighboring town, which is completely destroyed. And as you know, goblins live there. Fortunately, the local goblins are not very vigilant, so they are easily killed by grief. He goes in search and finds a sleeping goblin in an abandoned house. They inform the others about this and everyone goes hunting together. They take their positions and slowly creep up on the goblin and then stab him in the neck to wake him up. The goblin screams and tries to attack them, but the man quickly hits him in the face and then on the head, finishing him off. In the end, they get quite a lot of loot from this goblin, which boosts their morale, but the man says that it is too early to celebrate and they should return home. After this day, they often began to come to this ruined city, as it was easy to find sleeping goblins there, but sometimes they had to fight in the open area. They also noticed a group of 4 to 5 goblins, but it was impossible to fight them, so they continued hunting experienced singles. Soon they began to earn money, and finally Haru saved enough to buy underwear after a lot of bargaining, so he no longer has to go without him. Ren and Mok spend their money on food and even bring home a lot of food that the man tells them that they need to save, so that if they save enough they can learn new skills that will help them in battles. They all agreed with this opinion and decided to go back to bed to go on an adventure again the next day. The next morning the man and she went to buy food, but on the road the man decided to feed the birds and noticed that she was watching them with curiosity. He asked if she wanted to try, and although at first she refused, but then she agreed and tried to feed the bird. One of the pigeons sat on her hand and she staggered back and almost fell. Fortunately, the man caught her in time and she stood on her feet. That day, they went to the ruins to beat up the goblins, and one of them rushed at Ren. Ren lunged, but the goblin easily dodged while Ren was fighting Haru and Utoka. Position, and she demonstrated her new skills called their strike, which allowed her to attack enemies from afar. Taking advantage of this, Haru ran up to the goblin, dodged his blow and plunged a dagger into his back. When he fell dead, Young cleaned the weapon and Ren collected the loot, but it turned out that there were more goblins in the area. She immediately used her new skill called Shadow, binding and hit one of the unsuspecting goblins, who froze in place, and the man hit him on the shoulder, breaking his arm, and finally Ren finished off the goblin with a quick blow. Meanwhile, the IOC also fought, and they fought in a duel with balls, where he could prevail thanks to his strength. He hits the goblin on the head before using his special attack, from which the monster flies to the wall, and then Ren jumps on him to finish him off. They collect all the loot they found and sit down to have lunch after a successful morning hunt. They are discussing how to unite to attack a large group of goblins, because now they are much more experienced and stronger. Finally, they gather for half a day, but while Maine was leading a group of How, he suddenly noticed something shiny on the roof of the building and immediately rushed towards me, pushing off, and took care of another goblin. He ordered everyone to retreat while they were still trying to fight, but realized that there were too few of them, and they would die if they did not run away. They hid behind the buildings and ran, but one of the goblins climbed onto roof and shot at me. Even after that, man continued to run, and eventually they reached the forest where everyone was breathing heavily. He notices that the man looks pale, and suddenly he falls to the ground when he sees that there is an arrow sticking out in his back. They all run to him and try to help, but the man was the only one who knew healing magic. He tries to heal himself, but nothing works for him, and Haru asks what should they do. The man is trying to say something but dies from loss of blood right in front of them while they are trying to save him. Besides, by the time he arrives, they are already returning to the city and running straight to the temple carrying the man. Haru immediately approaches the head priest and begs him to save the man. The old man examines him, but says that it is too late. The man is dead. Ren gets angry and threatens the old man, and Haru desperately begs him to try something to revive the man. Makoto Skivax, nothing can be done, and it is best to give the man a decent funeral in this area. If the fallen soldier is not given a decent funeral, he becomes a zombie and ends up in the army of the Demon King. Mok asks, should the man be cremated? And the old man nods. After hearing this, Shai falls to the ground. He begins to have a panic attack, and Haru asks how much it costs. The old man says that it costs a lot of money, but if they don't have it, he will pay because the man was his student. Harvey yells at him that they will pay for the funeral no matter what it costs because he was their comrade and friend who deserves a worthy send-off. Everyone mourns for their commander, who was always calm, cool, and collected, and made sure that they all survived no matter what. After the cremation, they scattered his ashes in a beautiful valley so that he would return to the earth among the beautiful flowers. Everyone just lay on the ground, not knowing what to do, because before it was Maine who came up with the plans and led everything, but now that he is gone, the team feels lost and without a goal. Rent finally gets up and says that Harf is returning, asks where he is going, but he replies that he doesn't care if he doesn't sit here and grieve for the dead. For this, he gives him another slap in the face and shouts at him, throws it out on his knees, and cries while Rent is walking. One Harf and the rest sit for some time, and he looks around and sees that his whole team is falling apart. That evening, Harf and Ma go to the nearest tavern and see Rand, who is sitting alone at the table. They join him for a drink and talk about what to do next. Rand says that he doesn't want any more adventures. He says that he has neither the desire nor the strength to go into the forest or kill enemies, and he will just find another job. Haru tries to reason with him, but this leads to the fact that they start shouting at each other, and Haru even blames him for the deaths of a man as if he didn't get 2 arrows in the chest and he didn't have the strength to heal himself before the quarrel flared up. Even more could have shouted at them, which was very unexpected because usually he spoke very softly. He angrily told them to stop bickering because none of them is to blame. Finally, they calm down and begin to discuss what should they do next. From the wounds claims that they can't handle it themselves because none of them are as good as the man of the coat of arms says that they need to keep going because they need money to just eat and sleep. Suddenly a guy named approaches Dem. Kiki says that he heard their conversation from afar and asks how they are doing. They tell him about the death of their leader and friend, and he feels sorry for them, but he says that they need to keep going, but they need a priest. He says that priests are the center of the group and they should never be in the vanguard because it is basic knowledge and common sense that any enemy will try to kill your healer if he has a chance, because healers are the most problematic members of the group that keep the whole team together. He says that in his group the priest is always protected by two. It upsets the warrior at any cost because he has always been a tank, and now he can't be one, and he is forced to be a tank healer and an attacker at the same time. He tells them that they shouldn't focus on this because what's done is done and they need to move on. But before that, he advises them to take a priest to the team because without him they are as good as dead. The hormone says that no one else will join them because they are probably the weakest team. They have no money or other incentives. Kick says that they need to keep trying and promises to find them candidates before leaving for another table. The next morning the team meets a girl named Mary. She's supposed to be a priest but looks like the complete opposite of a home. She has no smile or charm. They try to introduce themselves, but Mary doesn't really care and she asks where they're going. Herbert says he thinks they should go to the ruins again, but Mary asks him to decide if they're going there or not. Rhett tries to intervene and tells her to change her attitude, but her coldness makes him feel awkward, and he just apologizes. With that she says Harvard so that he starts moving, otherwise she will return home, and the whole team feels awkward because of the dynamics in the team and does not know how long their union will last. Later that night the guys went to the tavern again to get drunk and discuss the difficult situation they found themselves in. He remembers how difficult it was to work with Marie when he made the plan. She simply refused to go fight because according to her she is a priest who should hide and help only when someone is injured. R&D tried to talk to her about it and said that she should participate in the battles too, but she just waved him off, and in the end everyone sat on the floor while Rent and Marie were arguing about strategy. Although it was Haru's job finally, when it came to the real fight Marie completely ignored their formation, because of which even the mob and Rant were wounded, and Yu and Haru together pushed the goblin back. Harvin told Marie to heal the wound while they restrained the goblins, but Marie simply replied that his wounds were not serious and there was no point in wasting mana on such a small wound. Because of this chaos the goblins, who were on the verge of defeat, took advantage of the moment and ran away, and they got nothing from this fight. Harf just drowns his sorrows in drink, thinking about how easily the big boss would have dealt with this. After all, when he was around, the two goblins were nothing to them, but Harf thinks that he is not strong enough to do the same no matter what. The R&D tells them that they should just forget about her and make their way through the destroyed city, earning as much as possible money to buy himself a badge of the next rank. Harvey tells him that they can't just kick the priest out of their group, and then everyone falls silent because Ryonji walks into the tavern as if he stepped out of the pages of a manga. The true way of the East. He is from head to toe in amazing armor. He walks past everyone and approaches Haru, handing him a gold coin as a gift because he is sorry that man died. Haru immediately gets up and goes for Ryonji, returning the coin to him and saying that he appreciates his gesture but cannot accept this coin. Ryonji simply agrees and leaves, and Haru returns to the table where Ren is angry at Haru for refusing the coin because 1 gold coin is equal to 100 silver coins, and with that money it could buy badges for their entire team. The IOC claims that that person would not like it if they just took someone's money, but Ren still disagrees. Harvey suddenly says that the problem is not only with Maria, but with all of them. According to him, they are completely don't communicate, and after that person's death they barely talk to the girls. Ren tells them that they need to be friends with them again, but Haru replies that he doesn't know how to do it. Later on a rainy night, Haru waits outside while Yoon comes out of the bathroom. He asks if she's mad at them, but she coldly replies that she's not mad. Haru apologizes to her, saying that it was his fault and that he should have asked her first and then invited Mari to the party. He tells her that in his opinion they can't do anything without the priest, so I guess he rushed to a decision. Yum suddenly shouts that this is not the case, runs up to Haru and starts crying, claiming that he and Shini know how to express their feelings and feel abandoned since man died. Haru replies that he also does not know how to express his feelings, and Yu says that they used to be friends, all 6 of them. They were always a team, but after man's death each of them began to fight for themselves without caring about anyone else. Haru suddenly realizes that he tried too hard to take my place, hoping to cope with everything alone, but man, he never acted like that. He always trusted his team and made sure that everyone played their role and worked together to overcome any difficulties. He breaks down and begins to cry, and Yum hugs him and says that soon everything will be fine. After a long conversation, they finally calm down, lie on the ground hugging as best friends usually do, and Yun says that he will try to make friends with Mari and that they will definitely cope with this While they are lying, Shai opens the window in the bathroom to let off steam and suddenly notices Yum in a very awkward position because with of her place. It seems to her that she is doing Haru immediately becomes embarrassed and begins to explain that this is not what she thought about, but she simply apologizes and embarrassedly closes the window. Yum, however, she does not pay attention to this and tells Haru that she plays the trombone very well and one day she can demonstrate her skills, but Haru asks her to off because he does not take his eyes off the juicy chicken legs that she eats. The next morning they all have breakfast together in preparation for a new adventure and Yun says that Mari is not very friendly. She thinks that none of them tried to give her a helping hand. From now on she will try to be friendly with Mari and become friends with her. Maud says that he wants to be friendly with her too, but she never listens to anyone or helps anyone, and Ren says that he will make her fall in love with him and then she will be kinder to everyone else. Everyone just ignores this idiot, and Haru says that they need to take things gradually because she can't suddenly become friends with everyone in their group. And everyone agrees. Later that day they all go to her together and this time they all greet her, and although at first she ignores them, then she returns the greeting and follows them along the road. Yu tries to start a conversation and asks Mary what she ate for breakfast, and Mary replies that she has already had breakfast. She tries to continue the conversation by asking if she liked the snacks, but Mary simply replies that she never snacks, and this is the secret of her perfect figure. Finally, they enter the ruined city and hide behind the rubble, noticing a group of goblins ahead. Hao comes up with a plan and says that Ren and Mana will fall first, and Haru and Yum will flank, and Mari will cover them with Ran. The goblins are taken aback and Haru and Yum attack from the other side, surrounding them. The goblins attack Haru and he barely dodges and Marie covers him, while Yum comes to the rescue. They both begin to attack the goblins and Tama and Mok and Ran at the other end of the battlefield receive blows from their opponents and try to retreat. Mary immediately screams for Mogu so that he doesn't fall because he is a warrior, and Runt calls him an arrogant. Runt gets hit but dodges and kicks the goblin away and then delivers a powerful blow piercing his neck with a sword. Meanwhile, Mogul wins the sword fight and then completely crushes the enemy with a heavy blade. The last goblin is still fighting with Haru and Yum wields two swords and their attacks are difficult to counter. But she uses a shadow binding spell and frees herself and runs away just in time to get hit by Haru, who slips past his swords and delivers a powerful blow to the back, instantly killing the goblin. It seemed that her team is fine, but Mary walks up to the Mogu who got hit in the head and tells him to take off his helmet to examine the wound. She apologizes when he feels the pain and then uses her healing abilities to heal the wound and stop the bleeding before cleaning it. Ren screams for her to heal him, but she says that he only has a small scratch that has already started to heal, and if he wants to heal so bad then let him deposit himself after the battle, and the threat is eliminated because this way she can use her mana more effectively. And finally realizes their actions. They return to the abandoned house to rest, and Haru tries to strike up a conversation and asks if there are different types of priests. Mary replies that she knows nothing about it, but Haru insists, saying that she seems to have her own approach to healing, while a man would immediately heal anyone who healed the wound. He then asks what her plan is, but she says that he doesn't need to know. That he gets a little upset but remains calm and tells her that they will not pry into her personal life and just want to know enough to work well in a team because each of them has their own roles and responsibilities that they must fulfill. She interrupts him and says that if he doesn't like the way she works, he can say it to her face and she will immediately leave. Harvard tries to explain to her that this is not so, but she interrupts him and asks what the hell his problem is. He decides that it is better to leave everything as it is, and they return in the evening. By the time May falls, Haru along with everyone else including the girls enters the tavern. Aran tells them that it is time to finish because this is the first time they had been in such a place talking with each other. They notice that Mary entered the dads, and even when she saw them she just walked past without paying attention. Ren begins to get angry at her behavior, and who wouldn't be angry, but Shai says that they didn't try to call her either, so they can't blame her for everything. Ren claims that they don't have to treat her with UVA, and Yum replies that even Ran's parents probably don't like him, and they start arguing again until they noticed that a young knight approached Mary and started talking to her. Ran Shin recognizes him as a member of the famous clan and they all begin to think why he is talking to Mary. That night Haru sits alone by the fire thinking about Big Daddy and doubting his abilities. An illusion of a man appears next to him and says that he can do it. Haru replies that he can't because none of the girls call him daddy, but the man says that he can and disappears, leaving Haru alone while he is in the clouds. The next morning they go down to the ruins again, where Haru could. They fight one-on-one, but Haru stabs his opponent before looking at Ma, realizing that he has to be careful because he doesn't have a helmet, which means he will die from one hit to the head, and unlike the thief he can't attack someone from behind. He quickly hides behind the goblin while he could push him away, giving Haru the opportunity to hit the goblin on the wrist, which confuses the beast and could knock the goblin off the bridge. He realizes that until now he never thought about their fighting styles and didn't even watch his teammates fight, and maybe that's why he couldn't come up with a plan like man does. While passing through the alley, Haru can say that he needs to buy a helmet, even the cheapest one. If he doesn't have money, he can also chip in. He says that he shouldn't spend money on something that he won't need, but Haru replies that the helmet will help me fight more openly. That distracted by the opportunity to attack, Mari listens attentively to this conversation, and Yum says that this is a great idea and also wants to chip in to buy a good helmet for the Mog ahead. Ren tells them about the goblins in the area, and Haru is forced to fight one of them, and the hidden one. The goblin tries to attack Mary, but Ren comes to her defense and throws the beast aside and then kills it. He shouts at Marie to stop standing in one place and not become an easy target, but she, without saying a word, swings her staff and knocks down another goblin. Haru understands that Mary has also learned to fight with a staff, but she is not like Haru, who always walks ahead. But she is definitely ready to protect them. When danger arises in the evening, they all return home, and when Marie already was about to leave, Haru stops her and asks if she wants to have dinner with them. After all, they had a good day. Mari politely refuses. At this time, she says goodbye to them before leaving. Woons again calls her a nasty underscore. Atyun says that today she seems more friendly than usual and is slowly starting to get used to them. Haru agrees with this and, in order to get to know her better, decides to meet and talk with Shin from the famous Orion clan and ask the other clan members to go with him. That evening they go to the dads and meet Shin, who sits down at their table. Tara asks about Mari and Shin seems surprised, but he says that his teammate Hayashi would rather give them a more accurate answer because he used to be on her team. Hayashi sits down and says that they also used to be a team of 6 people like Haru's team, and from the very beginning they interacted well and coordinated their actions. He says that in 10 days, they were able to earn enough money to buy better equipment for themselves, and every day, they became better, stronger and stronger, defeating more enemies. A main one in their squad was Marie herself. She was very cheerful. She never let anyone feel out of place and was always ready to help. Even if someone got a scratch, she immediately treated him. Even after becoming a priest, she was not afraid to go to the front line and protect her comrades, and you can say that she was worth 3 players according to him. They became stronger and eventually became arrogant deeper into the dungeon, and one day, when they went very far to fight strong monsters, they came across a huge white monster that had already killed several players. They had to run, but everyone on their team thought that they could handle it, and this was their biggest mistake. The monster knocked him down, and when he came to his senses, he saw that 2 of his teammates were dead, and the warrior of their squad was trying to hold back the monster. He shouted to Marie to heal them, but she did not move and just hugged the body of one of her comrades and then turned to him with tears in her eyes and said that she had no mana left for magic. The warrior of their squad was covered in wounds and neither he nor Mari could do anything to help him. He somehow got up when the monster attacked the warrior and threw him back, seriously wounding the warrior. He barely gets up, leaning on Maria. Hayashi and tells them to leave immediately before giving them his token. Hayashi understands what needs to be done and takes the tokens of the rest of the team members and then drags Mari while the warrior decides to sacrifice his life to save 2 of their dear friends. The last thing they saw was the monster attacking their friend, and then everything became blurry in their memory. After that they joined the Shina clan, but Marie soon left because it was too painful for her to stay where Hayashi was because it constantly reminded her of those she lost. Since then she constantly changed parties and never stayed for long because she was afraid to get close to people. Then he gets up and bows and asks them to take care of her and then leaves. Shin says that he understands how painful it is to lose someone because he also lost countless comrades and advises them to value their friendship because they will understand how important it is only when she is gone on the way back. RNT begins complaining that just because she had a hard past doesn't mean they should be with her especially nice according to him. Each of them had a hard past and she doesn't want to make an effort to overcome it and become friends with them, then he's not interested in that either. She starts crying like a little girl who can't control her emotions because of her body. She tells them that they should try to make friends with Mary because they also lost a team member and understand her pain. Haru supports her and tells Rana that they need to listen to her and relate to her as a friend because only then can she consider them her friends. Ren looks at Haru and asks how many times he tried to listen to him. He complains that no one ever listens to him when he wants to say something and that everyone ignores his ideas. He replies that his ideas always suck, so of course they ignore them, which leads to another altercation. Meanwhile, Haru thinks and finally understands that Ren also feels that he is not understood and decides to fix everything. He apologizes to Ren and says that from now on he will be more careful and will try to be his friend. He asks him to stop acting like a girl and apologizes to Mary for speaking badly about her. Then he asks how he can communicate with her tomorrow, and even Haru wonders how they will look into her eyes now that they know her past. The next morning, Yu and Haru were looking around the area again. It was cloudy and raining when Haru noticed that one of the goblins had his dagger, which he dropped on the day the person died. He got angry because of this and tried to take it away, but Yam pushed him to the ground in time because one of the goblins who was nearby almost noticed them and went further. He apologized to her, said that he had not been himself for the last couple of days and suggested looking for where it was hidden. Meanwhile, Ran Shaemank and Mari were resting in an abandoned building while waiting for Yui Haru. Finally, they returned, wet in the rain, and said that they could not find anything worthwhile because all the goblins were either in large groups or very vigilant and were in hard-to-reach places. Of the wounds, he suggested returning if there was nothing to do, and everyone stood up, but Haru said that he wanted to talk to Mari first. She seemed surprised but boldly looked at him and asked what he wanted and said that if he wants her to leave, then there is no need to walk around and she will leave right away. Haru realized that they were all acting strangely since they found out about Mari's past, and she must have noticed this and decided that they want to kick her out. Haru promised that they did not want her to leave and began to talk. He told her that earlier they had a priest named M who was their leader. He continued that Main died at the hands of the goblins, or to be more precise, due to their carelessness. He tells her that this man healed them even if they only had a scratch and was a shield for their squad. Basically, he did 3 jobs at the same time and never showed how hard it was for him, and in the end he died. He says that everyone thought that this was the end for their squad, but they needed money to continue traveling and they needed a priest, and that is the only reason they took her into their squad. He tells her that initially they were just a group of people who were not taken into any squad, and then this man decided to make friends with everyone and created his own squad, and even after his death they are still good friends who support each other. After that, he tells Marie that no matter what she thinks, he also considers her a friend. Marie seems a little surprised but says that she also considers him a friend, and soon everyone including Ren tells Marie that they all want to be her friends. In the evening, when the rain finally stops, they all return home together and a beautiful sunset is visible on the horizon. Before going their separate ways, Hera invites Marie to help them find Mao's helmet, but of course, Mary simply apologizes because she won't be able to come. Haru insists and asks if she would like to join them for dinner, but she looks at them with sad eyes and says that she needs a little more time. Then she says goodbye and runs away, and the rest go to the market to get a helmet for Ma. They found a suitable helmet, and they returned. And after that, fighting the goblins became a little easier because Ma could attack enemies without fear, and they began to advance forward every day. Now their teamwork became good enough that they could easily defeat the 4 goblins, and every day they became closer to Mary, who slowly but surely began to trust them. They began to go to those ruins every day to hunt goblins, and soon everyone began to call them goblin hunters. When they came to Dad, many joked that they were not lying. Day after day they continued to fight the goblins, and soon they had no difficulty defeating any goblin that came their way until they improved their equipment with the money they had. Soon they learned to distinguish one goblin from another, and finally they were able to invite Mary to dinner. Everyone laughed and Mary still looked sad, and Haru realized that he had never seen her smile before. Soon they were able to buy better armor and even learned new skills. For example, Haru has the skill of muffling steps, which allows him to silently sneak up on enemies, and Ears has the skill of shadow magic, which puts enemies to sleep for a short time. Ram learned to retreat to step to quickly increase the distance between yourself and the enemy and then deliver quick piercing blows, often catching enemies by surprise. Coat in turn learned to use the war skill, which paralyzes enemies for a short time, and this time is enough for you with your increased accuracy to deal with them. As for Marie, she was always several levels above the rest. Therefore, she did not need to learn anything. And Haru learned a new skill that sometimes allows him to see the trajectory along which his blade should move in order to kill the enemy with one blow, and if he hits at the target, then any enemy dies from one blow. That night they all went to bed deciding to finally finish off the remaining goblins in the ruins, because they had become much stronger than before and believed that they could destroy them all in one fell swoop and avenge the death of Big Daddy. The next morning they got together ready for the raid and talked for the last time holding hands, and Haru said that he really liked Big Daddy's staff and promised that today they would avenge the death of their teammate. She says that the last time they entered this part of the dungeon, one of them was taken away and he still cannot forget the pain that he experienced. He says that he never wants to feel this again. So the main goal is to stay alive and get out of here. Maria, in turn, finally opens up and says that she already allowed her friends to die in the dungeon once, but this time she will do everything so that none of them die among the goblins. It looks like today is a calm day. Some are patrolling and monitoring the situation, others they sleep, play cards, and some even play chess, not suspecting that their boring day will soon turn into a real action movie. You sneak to the first goblin. Aaron and Haru, meanwhile, take a position near the stairs to attack the IOC. Maria and Shelly are hiding in the ruins, waiting. When the ambush begins, you decides to go out and take aim to shoot from a crossbow at the neck of one of the goblins, killing him on the spot. The other goblin does not have time to understand what happened as Haru rushes at him and stabs him in the back. This is noticed by the main goblin who is playing chess. Meanwhile, the goblin attacks Haru, but he blocks the attacks. But then Rand saves him and cuts the goblin's throat. Meanwhile, the IOC knocks down the door. There will be all the goblins who are preparing for the fight. The Wuins immediately rushes forward and begins to deal with the small goblins, leaving the big Maga and Yum shoots at their general with a bow. The general is much stronger than ordinary goblins and just breaks the arrows in half before rushing at them with a sword. They dodge the attack, but the general pushes the snake and he blocks the blow, and Yum attacks him from behind, distracting him and forcing him to defend himself. Taking advantage of with this, they are able to wound the goblin in the stomach, while Mok fights the bouncer, hitting him with blow after blow, and Ren tries to fight off the two goblins that are crowding him. He immediately uses his ability to retreat to create distance and shouts for Haru to help, but Haru replies that he is a little busy with his goblin who tries to land 2 quick blows before you is asked. Finally, Haru takes a position and uses a spell before shooting the bouncer with shadow magic, instantly put him to sleep and give Ma a chance to finish him off once and for all. But at the last moment he suffocates when one of the goblins blocks his attack with a stone and the other hits the bouncer to wake him up. Haru realizes that they also understand magic, and this is a problem because the situation is changing. The general is behind Sabin Yuma and an enraged Ranat who tries to attack but is blocked by Goblin. Haru immediately rushes to the defense and attacks the general, but he blocks the blow and pushes Haru away, and the general continues to mercilessly attack, losing more and more ground, realizing that if this continues he will receive a fatal blow. Luckily, Mari appears in time and takes his place, and when the general tries to attack Mari, she simply blocks his blow and then hits him on the head with her staff, giving Haru the opportunity to attack, and he begins to hit the general in the chest. This general is a strong son of the underscore. He is still alive and fighting, so Haru tries to stab him in the heart, but the monster blocks the blow with his hands and throws him back. Haru tries to attack again, but Marie quickly uses her healing abilities on Yuma. By the time they turn their attention to the general, he has already run away, wounded, and the Mok are still fighting with their opponents, and despite the fact that Mok is very durable, he receives a strong blow from the bouncer and begins to lose consciousness, but does not retreat. and gives the rest of the team the opportunity to fight. She tries to shoot the bouncer again, but he dodges and hits Mog again with his baton. Mog falls to the ground, but Muret immediately uses it on him with healing magic. Kandyun enters the battle again, and everyone is busy with the matter. Shay decides to take matters into her own hands and runs forward, casting a spell, and again shoots at the bouncer and the walls, and this time hits right before two goblins knock her down. The bouncer falls again, and this is enough for him to deliver the decisive blow, destroying the ground under him. Seeing this, the other two goblins run away, but Ren uses his ability and impales one of them, killing him. Fortunately, Shiran was not harmed, even praises her for her bravery, while they all gather and decide to go after the remaining goblins to end this once and for all. They go up to the top floor, where they find the general, who is sitting on a chair, barely alive. Blood is flowing from his wounds and he is breathing heavily, unable to move. Rand approaches him and puts a sword to his neck. But before he can kill him, they hear a whistle and turn around to see that Marie has been wounded by an arrow fired by one of the goblins who was hiding on the beams. Marie falls to the floor and Ren tries to finish off the general, but his armor protects him and he runs away, but the mod deals a strong blow to the goblin, killing him. Ren tries to find a way to catch the goblin with a crossbow, and Haru seems scared to death. Fortunately, Marie, still conscious, and asks him to bandage her wound. The goblin runs out the window and aims at him to kill the one behind him. Haru uses his 100. Haru rushes at him to kill, but the goblin turns out to be more agile, and when they fall onto the roof, he sits on top and strangles Haru, but Haru manages to grab the second dagger and plunge it into the goblin's neck, killing him. At that moment, Yum runs up to them to help avenge the death of his fellow leader and friend. They return to the valley to visit the grave of Meng and see how the first snow begins to fall around them. They say a few words about it, and Mary stands and looks from afar, while they take out their new one's badges and show her. She approaches the grave and takes out the badge that they bought for Nga. She puts the badge on the tombstone and starts crying, and Yum hugs her. They all walk back, and along the way Haru starts a conversation with Marianne. In the end, she completely thaws out, which gives him the opportunity to try his maximum level of chasuble on her, but it doesn't make much of an impression on her, and she tells him that next time he should try better. Then they separate and go their separate ways. The next morning, Harvard has a habit of waking up early but realizes that they decided to take a day off. Since yesterday was very hard in terms of physical and mental stress, he goes downstairs and sees that the OC is preparing breakfast while he brushes his teeth and thinks, what the hell should he do on a free day? They have breakfast on the street, and he bites off a piece of freshly baked smanov and starts eating it, along with some delicious-looking stew. Haru asks Mogo where the others are, and he replies that RND left early in the morning with his fishing rod, so most likely he will spend the whole day sitting by the stream and not catching anything, and she also left early in the morning. Haru asks Mogo what he will do on his day off, and he says that his armor was very wrinkled in the last battle and his sword was dull, so he will probably go to the gunsmith to get them repaired. Herman calls him a loser for not going to clubs and not is having fun on his day off, and says that he is also going to go somewhere. Herman says that he will meet in the evening at a tavern and then leaves to wander around the city because he has nothing else to do. He approaches the bridge and sees that she is already talking to the pigeons and feeding them something tasty, and Kara tells her about a new recipe for moga bread. She just smiles and says that she has already tried it before and it was just amazing. Then they look at the sunrise, remembering how they came here in the evening, and go their separate ways. Haru goes to the counter, buys a few kebabs, and wanders aimlessly around the city looking for something interesting until he comes across Marit, who is reading a book in a cafe like some rich girl. She seems surprised to see Haru, but he assures that he is not stalking her, and she invites him to sit down. He orders coffee, and Mari says that she lives on the second floor of the cafe since she left the guild, and from time to time she comes down here to be alone. Haru gets up thinking that she wants him to leave, but she assures him that she likes his company and begins to stroke a strange creature that looks like an anteater and a cat at the same time. Haru skillfully takes the moment to sneak a look at her thighs, but comes to the conclusion that Shayas are definitely more appetizing. She says that they should all come here sometime for a relaxing tea and he agrees and Marie says that she used to live in cheap apartments too. But then she earned a lot of money and became a rich. Haru looks at her and says that soon they will also move out of their apartment and find something better because over the past few days they have made good money. Meanwhile, Aren is still waiting in his boat when he catches at least one fish and suddenly notices that someone is trying to climb the moon. He takes a closer look and sees that it is Yum, who demonstrates her cool climbing skills better than Tom Cruise himself. On the other hand, Mariah herself was not outraged. She was just dozing on a chair after receiving all her armor back. Mari and Haru leave the cafe together to meet the others in the tavern but stop halfway to admire one beautiful sunset over the orange sea. Later that evening they gather again in the tavern and while talking, Kick bumps into them again and reports that something has happened in the city. According to him, several new adventurers entered the ruined city and came across a group of goblins in armor who killed several of their comrades and injured several more. Of Mary intervenes and tells Haru that she is almost sure that they killed all the goblins in the main part of the city, but it is quite possible that a group of goblins who were associated with them but lived in another place returned to take this place and take revenge on those who killed their relatives. Keki confirms this by saying that according to rumors these goblins were fully prepared for battle and viciously scoured a corner of the city to make sure that there were no adventurers there. After which Kick says that it is not their problem and leaves before patting Hao on Hao's breasts, and Marie return to the table and Hao tells the others about the rumors about goblins that are still in the destroyed city. Hao says that maybe they should go to the ruins again and check everything, but Ren interrupts him saying that if the rumors turn out to be false, they will have wasted the whole day. Barks because they have not been around for a long time went outside the ruins. After hearing this, Haru softly says that they can go to the Siren Mines, where Mari lost all her comrades. He immediately tries to apologize to Mari, but the idiot Ran says that this is the best idea he had and that they should definitely go to the mines and get as much mining as possible from the pits. Asks if they are sure that this is a good idea because in the same mines there is a giant monster and if the team was able to do that then they have no chance. Of Rand's replies that they should at least try because for there is a reward of 30 gold coins on the head of the monster. Hera tells him to calm down and explains that no matter what they need to change the place of hunting because if they constantly go to the same place they will get used to it and start making mistakes because it will seem like an easy task. To them he says that sometimes it is good to challenge yourself and he does not know other places for adventure so they can try their luck in the mines and be especially careful not to run into a giant monster. He says that he wants to go to the mines of Cyrene and explore them. Yun objects that in her opinion it's not so bad to go to the same place over and over again because recently they found themselves in less dangerous situations and they succeeded, but Haru says that if they go to the same place they won't develop, and she agrees with this. Suddenly Mari gets up from her seat and starts breathing heavily. Looking at Haru, she is very upset. She asks them to excuse her and leaves. Haru immediately gets up and follows her, but she disappears in the darkness. He looks at the starry sky and finally finds her on the stairs. He approaches her, but she falls and apologizes for running away. Harvard remembers that he wanted to go to where she lost all her teammates and understands that it will be very difficult for her. She says that she will not be able to remain calm when they enter other people's minds. Not only now, but possibly in the future. Haru understands her feeling and assures that he will not put her in an awkward position. This gives Marie courage because she understands that if this continues, she will never be able to forget her teammates and what happened in the mine, and this is not an option. She looks at Haru and says that she needs his help and the help of her team because she can't do it alone. Haru assures her that they will always be there no matter what happens and that she can completely rely on them when she feels that the situation is getting out of control. She stands up, Pan wipes away her tears, and then thanks him for his support and says that she is looking forward to their next adventure. Before heading to the mines, they decide to improve their skills and equipment so that they have the maximum chance of survival. Hera and to the Thieves Guild to meet with his trainer Barwa is a little tense because they haven't seen each other for a long time. In an instant, she walks up to him and puts a knife to his throat. She says that if they fought, Haru would be killed at very second. Without giving him a word, she throws him to the ground. They start training in the bar and she beats Haru at every opportunity. After she beat him, so bad that he can't get up. She finally gives him a gift of a lifetime, sits on his stomach and starts to torment him by asking if he's ever been late. Haru is so tired, but honestly answers that although there are 3 girls in his group, he's such a loser that none of them even looked at him twice. Bar makes fun of him a little more, but then Haru changes the subject and asks her about the magical path that he sometimes sees while with enemies and what is it all about. It seems to impress her and she says that it's good aside because only experienced adventurers can see him. A couple of times she starts doing handstands on him while still talking and warning him not to get arrogant at him, claiming that he sees it a couple of times, but it's not something to focus on because it happens on its own. She tells him that if he wants to see it more often then he needs to get stronger and starts training him again. A few days pass and finally, the team is completely ready to explore the Siren Mine dungeon. They look at the mountain and Haru gives them advice saying that they are coming into uncharted territory, so they need to be careful than ever, and that's how their journey begins. As soon as they go inside, the fight begins. Haru fights with an unusual monster who tries to punch him in the face, but Haru dodges the attack, tries to counterattack, but fails and is forced to retreat. He crashes into NDA, who also retreats. He takes out his knives and throws one of them into the monster's neck, and with the other he cuts his throat. IOC decides to help the others and rushes at the enemy. Haru engages him in battle and distracts him with how moment and runs up from behind, grabs him and plunges knife into his chest and then jumps back. The mob swings his sword to finish him off, but the monster is already lying on the ground, so they quickly run up to the NDU, who blocks the attack of his enemy, retreats and casts a spell, creating a sign of light and splashing some red liquid on the enemy. This new skill makes the enemy afraid and doubt his actions, which leads to mistakes. The monster rushes at the Ren and begins to mercilessly attack him, and he can only do that retreat, losing ground. Haru asks if he needs help, but Runt refuses and tells him to mind his own business. Finally, Runt finds Brez and cuts the monster's wrist and then jumps into the air and delivers a fatal blow. After the story was started, Nari tells them that these monsters are called Underspore and they have a ring in their nose, which is called a talisman. They must take it because inside the market it can be sold for a decent amount. She also continues to tell that these kobolds are the weakest monsters that can be found at the entrance to the mines and warns that inside they will encounter stronger and more numerous ones. They quickly collect all the talismans that they can find from the killed enemies and then they go down to the next level, and Marie warns them that now it will be hot because here there are ordinary kobolds and it is best to avoid battles. They move on and suddenly they hear a howl that scares them, but Haru encourages them and goes forward. IOC suddenly stops because he heard something and they look into the hole in the wall and see that there are kobolds sleeping there. Yurei says that they are very lucky that these kobolds are not patrolling the area, and they move on. RNT on the other side stops for a moment and thinks about whether he should kill them all. After all, they are easy prey. But Haru says that it would be mean even for someone like him. They move on and some kobold wake up. They enter the room where Marie uses her shadow magic to turn the earth in quicksand, and the kobolds cannot move, and the rest of the team quickly deals with them with precise blows to the vital organs. One of the hiding kobolds notices Haru, who is creeping up behind him, and sees how to kill him. He calmly exhales and delivers an accurate blow to the enemy's neck. They collect talismans and Marie says that they are stronger than she thought because they did not face big problems, but warns that it will be more difficult further because the leader is waiting for them at the next level. The kobold, known as Elder Rent, wants to go further, but Haru says that they need to rest and not tempt fate because they are already tired and fighting stronger opponents in this state is dangerous. RNT looks disappointed but still agrees, and they return to the camp lying in bed. Haru thinks about Dad again and realizes that their team works quite harmoniously except for Rent, with whom everyone has problems. He doesn't listen to anyone, doesn't accept advice and criticism, and is always ready to rush into battle. Haru decides to talk to him and asks if he wants to talk. He talked to her and he did not sleep, and went outside. Haru followed him down. Haru asks what he thinks about the team, but RNT replies that he doesn't care, their team is just a team, and that's all. He tells Haru that he is fulfilling his duties and that's all he cares about. For example, to date, he proved that he can cope with the enemy alone without the help of others. Haru says that he really did it, but if they helped They would kill the enemy faster and get more energy. RNT immediately answers that if he thinks that his teammates will come to the rescue, he will have problems when he is left alone with the enemy. But if he can cope with the enemy alone, then the team can focus on another.